So today we're going to be working on a hot tub, and this one is having some flow conditions. And how we know this is having flow conditions is basically on your actual top side, it's either going to have a flow error saying FLO, FLC, or in this case you can see it's got these 3 flashing red dots. And a lot of times this heater will never engage when those 3 lights are flashing or there's a flow error. You'll probably realize that your tub's running constantly and it never really gets above 93 to 97 degrees, and all that heat is basically just coming from that pump actually running non-stop. So a few things as a consumer that you can do before you have to get in here and basically test a few things like your pressure switch is you want to make sure that your water is up to level, so that way you know that you're not sucking any air through the filters and causing that flow error. And another thing is you want to make sure that your filters have been cleaned recently. As you can see, this filter is really clean. We just cleaned it. You can actually see the little whirlpool above it on low speed. We got plenty of water going through that. So if you have water up to the right level, your filter's clean, and you're still getting the 3 flashing lights or a flow error, we're gonna need to go in and do some testing. When we go into the actual equipment bay, 90% of the time, the equipment bay is going to be directly underneath your actual topside controller. So we'll have to get inside of this panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these trim pieces off. This should just lift out and we'll have access to our pumps and our pack. So once we're inside and we have access to the pack, normally when we have a flow error, we're looking for something that looks like this. And this is basically a pressure switch. And what this does is it registers when we have about 2 pounds of water pressure in our pipes, telling us that the pump is running, there's adequate water flowing through the heater, and it allows the heater to kick on and heat. When these go bad, basically it won't register, and basically your heater thinks that your water's not circulating or your pump's off, so it won't kick on. So we've taken the screws out of the actual pack here, and we can lift this up. And I highly recommend, if you have to put your hands or anything into this pack, to turn the power off at the main breaker. But as you can see right here, we have that pressure switch. So in order to test this pressure switch, we're going to pull these 2 wires off the top of the actual pressure switch for the terminals. Like so. And if you have one of these handy multimeters, you can put it on a continuity test. So with our multimeter on, we can go ahead and test these by putting the multimeter on the actual wire connections on the actual thing. And if we don't get any beep, we know that our pressure switch isn't engaging with the pump on. And we actually have the pump on high right now. And normally if you don't have a multimeter with the pump on, you can actually jump the 2 wire connections that we took off that pressure switch with just a piece of wire, and I'll just stick it in there like so. So now that our pressure switch is jumped by putting this little wire in these 2 wire connections that we took off the pressure switch, and our pump's running, we can now come up here to the top side, and as you can see, we have no 3 lights flashing, no flow errors, and our heater is running with the heat light on solid. So we can also test that by turning it down. The hot tub's actually 100 degrees. We'll turn it down to 99, and after running for about 30 seconds, it should kick the pumps off. These pumps have been running non-stop for days and days since this pressure switch has been out and bad. On these pressure switches, sometimes they're on the inside of the pack right here, and sometimes they'll be on the outside of the pack, like over in this area. they're outside of the pack, you normally can just unthread these pressure switches and basically swap them out real quick with minimal amount of water squirting at you. On these ones that are inside the pack, I highly recommend draining the tub down and actually getting the water out, so that way when you unthread this, you don't get any water inside this pack, because typically if a drop of water in here, the thing won't fire back up. So I'm going to show you exactly how I changed these pressure switches, and I'm doing it in the shop because it was easier for me to get a better view on the actual pressure switch rather than trying to get it down in that hot tub in that crevice. So here we have an external pressure switch. These ones I think are a great deal because you don't have to drain the hot tub. So on these, basically what you're going to do is you're going to unplug your 2 wires. And then with our new pressure switch Tefloned up, ready to go, we're just going to take it and you can just counterclockwise turn these out. And that's it. If the hot tub's still full, make sure the breaker's off so it doesn't turn on while you're doing this. And that's it. It's gonna want to squirt some water out. So what I'll do is I'll unthread it till I start seeing some water coming out. In this case, there's not gonna be any water, but normally there'd be water coming out about a thumb in height. So we'll just push that back in to hold the flow. And then real quick, like, we'll pull that one out, and that should stop the water. And then you'll just twist this in, and you just want it about hand tight. And that's kind of it. Once you fire the tub back up and fire everything on high speed, you can check it for leaks. And if it does have a little drip, just give it another quarter turn until it stops leaking around the edges. And then once that's in, we'll just apply our 2 wires. It doesn't really matter which way they go, it's just making a circuit. So you can put these on either way, or either tab, and you should be good. Now, if your pressure switch is on the inside of your pack, you know, you'll have to take your 2 screws out, or 4 screws, whatever's holding that on. And like I said, I highly recommend draining your tub down, because if you try to like plastic garbage bag your internal parts of this pack, I mean, all it takes is a couple drops on there and basically your pack won't fire up. So I like to drain down the tub and make sure I'm not going to have a bunch of water come rushing out of that thing in there. Also, if you do have gate valves right before your actual heater or where your pressure switch is, in this case this one has them on both sides, you can actually shut these gate valves down like so, and you're going to push them all the way in and give them a quarter turn to lock them. And this also will prevent the water from getting into your heater tube where your pressure switch is. So with the gate valve shut or your tub's drained, the next thing you want to do before you take that pressure switch out inside that pack is you'll want to take one of these heater unions like so, and you'll want to loosen these up just to relieve the pressure of water that's in there, because there's still weight of water from the water up above here coming down. It's going to push water out of that deal. So I'll loosen one side of this up even if my tub's drained, and let the water and the water pressure come running out like so. And this is going to prevent, when I take that pressure switch out, water squirting out or getting a little flash of water that'll shoot up onto your board on your pack. After your pressure switch in your pack is installed, remember you're going to have to open up your gate valves, or after you fill your tub and you want to check to make sure that pressure switch isn't leaking, and also the heater union that you did loosen to relieve the pressure out of the heater tube, you want to make sure that's not leaking. Thanks for joining me with my hot tub flow air pressure switch video. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And also, I'll have a few different pressure switches in my description that you can get off of Amazon. Just pick out the one that looks like the one you have and you should be good. Happy hot tub.